be open to making mistakes. I mean, I think as Americans, we're so tuned to like, oh, we got to be perfect, or we don't. I think a sense of humility is important. I mean,
hello everybody, we're back in Vince's apartment with Aperos. This is something that helps us relax after a hard day of work. Vince has had a hard day of work. I've been out running errands. I'm getting ready to visit Asia and see my family. And part of the Asian culture is making sure you bring gifts. And picking gifts that they would like, that represent France, that are molded to their personalities. It was a full day of shopping. And one of the wonderful things I experienced was having those exchanges when I was at Durance buying some hand lotion and some sprays, some perfume. I just had a wonderful 30-minute exchange with the sales lady. We had the place to ourselves, and we talked about these different scents and the different people who've come to the shop. And then
you spoke in French?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was, and that's something else too. Is almost always when I want to get really technical about a particular good, I might start with "Parlez-vous anglais?" and then they'll say yes or no, and that gives me my backup for when I don't know a word. And then I'll go into French, and then I know, okay, if I need to fall back on something, I will do that. So anyway, we both had long days for our own reasons. Now we're having a drink. And today's conversation is moving to Paris after 50. And one of the things I love about Vince is filling out the kaleidoscope of the American in Paris website is Molly moved to Paris in her 20s. I moved in my 30s. Dolly moved, I think, in her 20s, but like 50 years ago. We have all sorts of people. And Vince, strange enough, you're in the middle, right? Dolly's our oldest writer by like many years on you. And she started her Paris journey 50 years ago. She has more Paris experience than all the other writers combined. But Vince is starting later in the story, starting at 50. And I wanted to know, when you think about Molly and I, Molly starting at 20, me starting at 30, what are the different things that people who are considering this journey and their ears perk up because they're in their late 40s, early 50s, and they hear you did it? What are the things you think they need to be aware of? And you may not have even thought about it because you were just being Vince. But what do you think that people 50 and older need to think about when they're coming to Paris?
Are they married or single? Give me that scenario, because I think being married is...
Let's start single first.
The ability to learn French is obviously the thing to do, but when I say learn French, not just going to some, expensive Sorbonne classes and then thinking you're going to learn French, I think it's learning French in the things that you love to do. Go to a dance class in French. You try to immerse yourself in it, and that, we're talking about. I live in Paris, so I don't know what it's like to live in other French cities. But in Paris, for sure. I mean, my feeling is immerse yourself in all of Paris. Taking the metro, taking the alley out, going to different kinds of events.
We have a lot more going on here. I mean, it's like Toulouse, Montpellier will kick up during school season, Lyon, but they'll get quiet off season. And there's a lot more English going on here. So it's easier to get by without French. You have to make an effort. In Paris, so much English is available to you. And if you're living in other parts of France, there's not so much English available to you. You're going to have to get stuck into the French early on.
I mean, I don't know.
But I still love that as the first thing that you mentioned. Like, do you have a plasticity of mind to be willing to learn another foreign language? Old dogs can learn new tricks.
And not learn it in the way that you think you're going to learn it academically. Like, just because if you're taking the what is the app everybody tries to use?
Duolingo.
Like if you're taking an app
Duolingo.
that basically is like this, the games. There's a gamesmanship to learning the language, and you learn these you get these badges.
I like to buy green apples.
It's just. Yeah, it doesn't work. So of course you can get frustrated. I mean, I think you got to get down and dirty. You go to a bookstore. You go.
Lost in Translation.
You go to even the Cinémathèque Française and you listen to lectures in French and
The first 2 or 3 days of any new French film, there will be some cinemas in which they show it with French subtitles for deaf people. I would go to work on my French. So I would go and see a subtitled French movie with French subtitles with the deaf people, so that I could take notes early on when I was really trying to work on my French.
I didn't know that was such a thing.
Yeah, it's a sous-titres français.
Yeah, but usually
VOSTF.
well, that I know, but typically when I see that, it's like it's in another language. So how do I know that that's French too?
If it's a French release film, and and it works the other way. I was sharing with Vince and some film people. They had a meeting, and I was leaving, and I was listening to part of the meeting, and I said I was in Paris during the entire original Avengers cycle, and I would be the only one in a cinema of 500 that laughed when Tony Stark made a joke on the bridge because it was such an American idiomatic joke. And no one in the theater laughed except me. Well, this happened the other way when I would go to these French subtitled films. And I would see it, and then everyone would laugh, and 3 seconds later, when I caught up with the translation, I laughed. And it was the other way around to see that. So I love the idea of you saying going to film. Film was a great part for how I learned French as well. So tip 1, be willing to get stuck into French, and not in the academic way, but in all sorts of unconventional ways that you can learn French.
And be open to making mistakes. I mean, I think as Americans, we're so attuned to like, oh, we got to be perfect, or we don't want to. We don't want to look bad. We want to be smarter than we are, and I think it's just that having a sense of humility is important. I mean, you're either going to have it or it's going to be forced on you.
It's tip number 2.
Be open-minded to all the different cultures that in Paris. So you go to the 4th arrondissement. It's not just bobos, like on this side of Rue Custine, it's bobos. On that side, it's it's a bit hot. It's like it's urban. I mean, a lot of Americans call it urban, but it's just North Africans, and they're just being like, that's just what the presence is. And so it's like it's not. Americans have a lot of trouble. White Americans have a lot of trouble here in where I live in the 4th arrondissement, because they see so many black people, and the first thing they want to do is hold their wallet, or the first thing something's going to happen, because they can be loud. They like to hang out at the corners, and they're just kind of being rambunctious, and there's a kind of vibe that is just where they're from and has nothing to do with whether it's a good side of the culture or a bad side of the culture. And Americans can be quite a bit judgmental about that sort of thing, and not accepting that how things are in Europe, and I think being open-minded and I think it's important. I mean, I don't think this is a tip in terms of survival, but I think it's a tip in terms of thriving and being really, like, if you really want to stretch your wings as a global citizen, not just an American running away from America, or an American trying to play some kind of role of being, an Emily in Paris surrogate or something like that. There's so much to Paris. There's 20 arrondissements, and then there's the suburbs, the burbs, the banlieue, and there's just,
which, by the way, is getting better all the time. It's Grand Paris now, and it's getting more and more connected. Will continue to get more connected, and that's where you're going to find a lot of deals with housing, not just shared housing, but buying housing. And that's probably a conversation for another time. But Vince has now bifurcated into surviving and thriving. So where do you want to go? Which road do you want to take us on for the next tip? So first role of surviving, get stuck in French. First role of thriving, be open-minded, so experiencing and learning other things. So do you want to go on the survive or the thrive?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say that I'm necessarily thriving, so...
Why do you say that? I mean, you're living your best life, man.
Am I?
Yeah. This is the whole point, is what I wanted to say is, would I at 50 have had the bravery to do what Vince did? Which is leave a pretty decent established life with decent established friends and start over from scratch somewhere else. I think I'm saying that as someone in my 40s, having started my Paris journey in my 30s, that feels scary to me. And I'm a pretty brave person. I'm someone who likes to jump in with both feet, ask questions later. But when I considered you, I've said this to more than one person, and I feel I've told Vince this, so it's nothing he hasn't heard before. But I find him to be a very brave person. that it just felt to me so reckless in the best kind of way. I'm going to do this thing. And so that's what I'm hoping to get today in the video, is some encouragement for people who might feel that hesitation due to my own natural thought that it would be scary. That's the outside looking in. That's a non-50-year-old thinking, gosh, for a 50-year-old, this must be harder. And then you might say, no, actually, Stephen, it's not any harder than 40 or 30 or 20.
Well, I think to that point, if you're talking about the idea of surviving or thriving, it's both. Is being humble and being open to what Paris is. I mean, I've had a couple American friends who've come to Paris now, and they're considering moving here, and they're complaining. Oh, there's no AC. Well,
there's funny. It's Facebook groups where people are like, we need air conditioning tonight. And what are you're posting in a Facebook group? Go to Darty. Like, what are you talking to us about?
It's just like we're in Paris. Like, we're not in America. Like, we're not. I think that's the thing. Is that if you really want to, when you're talking about being brave, I suppose, as a 50-year-old, I mean, I think there has to be a sense of acceptance, of humility, in terms of you're not going to get what you want. That you're not going to get the normal sort of accoutrements or the customs that you're accustomed to. So even like the way people treat you in the metro, or the way the French treat you, or things like, for example, like the French like to cut in line a lot. There are people, like young people, like to cut in line. You're in the line for tickets for like a concert or something, or they just like don't look at you and you cut in line. And my feeling is you just gotta, you don't accept it. You step up to that, because that's the thing about. That's where all of this kind of has to kind of I think connect together. By being able to know French, you'll be able to then have this little conversation about like step off, bro, whatever that French version is, right?
Right,
and making deals or that sort of thing.
I guess maybe let me approach it from the other side. What are the things that you had to jump over to get here? What were the hesitations? What were the blockades? Maybe that's a better way for us to frame this discussion, is as opposed to rules of survival and thriving. What did you have to overcome to get here in the first place? What were the obstacles?
Just the fear of all the paperwork.
Okay, so that's one thing that we try to address on the website all the time. Here's the how-to, etc. So got to do that stuff. So if you don't want to do paperwork, you can't come to France. That's just part of the deal. You could hire someone to do all the paperwork for you, but you're still going to have to provide them with everything they ask for. They don't know who you are. You're going to have to give them your passport.
That's the thing I wanted to, in terms of tips, right? Is most of the American expats that I've seen come over here, they use a lawyer and spend a load of money to come over here, and I say you should go to these guys with Steven, because they're not going to rip you off. And the thing is that you guys are so proactive about what's going on particularly in Paris, because you have such a big network that you hear things, that a lot of those guys that are lawyers, they're cash cows, and they're sitting in their office thinking that this is the way things are going to be, and the only way they learn is because they did something the old way and it's not working anymore. They're like, oh, by the way, this is the new way. Something must have changed. But they don't. I think having a fear for doing the paperwork, having a fear for the lack of convenience, because in America we're so used to conveniences, fast food, microwave oven, AC, your car, apps, the Waze app, things like that you just have to get used to doing extra work.
There's a lot of resistance.